Welcome, everyone. This is our final Innovation Week event. Innovation Week is a Husky Innovate Bridge event in which we are showcasing innovation by and with Michigan Tech alums, faculty, and students. I'm Lisa Casper. I'm Program Manager for Husky Innovate, and Husky Innovate is pleased to welcome Hajj Flemings today. Today, Hajj is going to share his journey as an innovator and an entrepreneur. Hajj is a brand management strategist who has led several new ventures. He's Michigan Tech mechanical engineering alum who has long embraced the entrepreneurial mindset and chose Michigan Tech because he enjoyed solving problems. Hajj is the founder of Rebrand Cities, a brand strategy consulting company that serves clients such as Cadillac, Pfizer, Walt Disney, and Detroit Lions, to name a few. And within Rebrand City, he leads a new global civic design initiative, which focuses on eradicating the digital divide by getting 10,000 small businesses online. In 2011, Hajj was featured on CNN's documentary series, Black in America, the New Promised Land, Silicon Valley. During filming of the series, he came to a deeper understanding of the meaning of digital divide for communities of color and dedicated himself to creating solutions. His insight led him to become the founder and CEO of Brand Camp University, an educational platform that creates technology accessibility and supports job readiness for clients in underserved communities. Hajj is also the author of Brand You Life, Rethinking Who You Are Through Personal Brand Management. Welcome, Hajj.
All right, well, thank you. I definitely appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. I know I'm gonna talk, I'll probably go back and forth in terms of like some slides and things like that. So I know we're good from that standpoint. So I know we're viewing this slide, but we can probably pull this slide down.
Okay.
And then do I have control of the, let me see if I can share.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I can share. Okay, cool. All right, but I want to see everybody's face. It's good to see everybody. And hopefully before it's over, maybe we can do a little shot and then we can share this online. So I don't know if everyone wants to turn their cameras on if possible. I'm not trying to put you into a privacy issue, you know, I'm concerned, but I'd love to be able to see a few faces. And what we can do is we want to share this because I want people to know we have amazing thought leaders that are connected to Michigan Tech and the mission. So we'll give people a few seconds. All right, all these beautiful faces. I know everybody's doing all kind of good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead real quick. I'm gonna do it on the count of three. We're gonna do a few of these just so we have them. And you know, just give me your I guess your grilled cheese look, so you can kind of, you know, just smile a bit. So on the count of three, 1, 2, 3. That's the first one. We're going to do a couple more. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And just like my wife always says, I'm gonna pick the picture that I look the best in, and so that's the one we're gonna roll with. That's the way it always goes. I do photos with me and my family, and I gotta shoot it to my wife so she can approve it. And I can be looking crazy, it doesn't matter. As long as she looks good, that's all she cares about. So no, it's all good. I'll make sure everybody is looking as good as possible. But again, I'm excited to be here. I graduated from Michigan Tech, and going to Michigan Tech was probably the greatest experience of my life. It didn't start out that way though. Like, so I'll never forget, I was trying to decide what school to go to. So I was late to class in high school. And so I went down to the counseling office and I knew if I picked up a book, a college book, that I could say I was down there. And so, you know, and so I got an excused absence. So I picked up the Michigan Tech catalog. Now, mind you, at that point in time, I had never heard of Michigan Tech. So I picked that book up. And then Michigan Tech was coming to our school the following week. So I kind of felt obligated that I kind of had to actually sign up for it because I picked a book. I'm the only one in there. And so then back then, there was a Greyhound bus. I don't know if the Greyhound bus exists or if it still even goes back up to Michigan Tech. Okay, so it does. All right, so I get on it. They drop me off. in the middle of 41 at like, I don't know, 5:30 in the morning. And that's kind of how the story started. And I'll never forget, I was there and I was talking to some different students, and there's a student by the name of Andrew Davis, or his nickname is Tiger, as we would know him. And he asked me if I was coming to Michigan Tech. I said, I'm not coming to Michigan Tech. I said, I want a social life. And so he said, Hajj, do you want a social life or do you want an education? And an interesting part is that I ended up getting both. I didn't think I was going to get both, but I got both. And I wanna acknowledge people who are a part of the process. So Dr. Morrison and Dr. Cole were advisors for the Black Student Association, and so they opened up their house or their home, and they were a very important part of our community feeling connected because we were 9 hours away from home. So we thank you, and we always remember the end of the year party that we had to have at their house, the best hamburgers and everything on the planet. So that was amazing. So I want to make sure that I give kudos to them. I see Mike Dorsey. So we went to school together. Good to see you, big fella. He's doing good things. And I know Darnisha was on here. So we all went to school at the same time. And so again, I just wanted to acknowledge that. So I'm very thankful for the family that I had in terms of making that experience work for me. So now, as I begin to get into my entrepreneurial journey, I believe that everybody lives a purposeful life. The world that we live in is not just about the things that we can physically accumulate, but it's really about the impact that you can actually have. And so as you're going through this journey as a student, part of it is figuring out what is your place in life? What is the impact that you want to have? Now, we all would love to be able to make a lot of money, and that's great. And I heard John Hope Bryant say it this way. He said, whatever you do, you always gather money as a capitalist. And what he was saying in that is that it doesn't mean that you need the money or that you care about the money, but those resources can be, they can be allocated to someone else for scholarships or things like that. So I really want to encourage you to really think about the impact that you're going to have, and really to focus on stuff that matters. At the end of the day, nobody at the end of life says, man, I wish I would have worked harder. I wish I would have, put another 10 hours in per week. But it's really about the lives that you touch. And so I'm gonna share a few slides, and I'm gonna kind of go back and forth because I want to just give you just a quick backdrop in terms of who I am. All right, let me get to these slides and let me do a screen share. I know we're all Zoom experts these days. I could probably teach classes on Zoom. I'm on it so often. All right, so cool. So I'm gonna pull this up real quick. Part of what I want you to understand is that part of my life is creating an incredible routine and doing things that I absolutely love. I'm in the branding space, so I really help people to tell better stories. So being able to communicate who you are, to me, is critically important. I used to teach a class at Michigan Tech, and the class I taught was personal branding. And so we actually had a student in my class who ended up getting an internship with NASA just based on the work that we had did. He had no digital footprint. Part of our requirements was putting video online and other content. NASA contacts him, does an interview over the phone, offers him a job on the spot. Why am I saying this? Part of what I've realized over time is that you have to be the chief storyteller. Everybody goes to Michigan Tech has got an incredible education. You are competing in a global society and a global economy. The people that you're competing against do not sit next to you. They're actually in another country. And so you have to understand that now in this world of remote work and distributed work teams, now the field has expanded even more. And so it's going to really be your job to figure out, how do you communicate who you are? Because at the end of the day, people don't pay you just because you're a nice person. And you don't even get paid what you believe you're worth. You get paid what you negotiate. And so there's going to be people who are going to come out with the same background, same education, same grades, and they're going to have opportunity that other people don't have. And it's not because they're smarter. is because they've been able to communicate and articulate their story. So even in the slides that I show, I'm very thoughtful in terms of the visuals and the element and the story that's being communicated. So here I'm showing my brand new sea glasses. I want to look deep. You can even see the little blue tinge on there. So all of those things are a part of me just communicating like who I am. So I'm a brand strategist, I'm a founder, I'm a city builder, a global citizen, I'm an esports investor. And what I love to do is I do love to travel now. And I realize that I can do work from anywhere. So this is me like in Milan and we're doing work and I'm there like with the family. And I'm saying this because I want to hopefully help you to be able to expand, you know what I'm saying, like your viewpoint. Growing up, I didn't travel a lot. So it wasn't like we traveled internationally. I did get on the plane, I think, once as a child, but I really didn't have that in terms of my background. But what I realized over time is that there's a whole entire different world in terms of culture and things that I've been able to connect to. And some of it is just learning through travel and things like that. In the work that I do, I can work from anywhere. So I have a chance to be able to work in amazing coffee shops and work from the house. And so it allows me to be creative. And one of the things that I want to share with you is that environment absolutely matters. Um, when I went to Michigan Tech, what I realized that there was a lot of very, very smart people, but I realized there was also a gap. And I felt like the ability to be able to communicate ideas and to zig when others were zagging, I felt like that's where I could really excel. And so I learned probably more outside of the classroom than I did in the classroom. And so I want to challenge you, even in your full experience at Michigan Tech, is that it's important for you to be able to maximize all of your experiences. And and for me, no, anytime somebody tells me no, it just gets me one step closer to my yes. And so I don't want you to ever be discouraged because, you know, it feels like somebody else is winning or somebody else is making more money or somebody else, you everybody has to follow their own path, right? And so I think that's critically important. The one thing that I think is super important for people to understand is that I believe that inside of every single person is a genius. And I'm gonna stop screen sharing for right now, just so I can just share this point actually with you, and I can see. For most people, the genius is asleep. I had a conversation with Seth Godin. He is the foremost marketing expert on the planet, and so we had a call, and so I was talking to him, and we started talking about genius. And when we started talking about genius, he said, Hodge, he said the average person operates in a genius for about 5 minutes per day. And when he made that statement, it made me really think. I was like, 5 minutes. I was like, well, I'm busy all day. I'm doing stuff. And sometimes we equate being busy with being effective. And so the example that he used was it was Stevie Wonder. So I know we have a few younger folks on here. I'm not sure if y'all have ever heard of Stevie Wonder or not. That's just a joke. But he is a musician like from Detroit. So he has this collection of albums, but he's known for a small group of number one hits that he actually has. And so what happens for us is that we think other people are at home or at the office being 100% efficient, doing all of these great things, when at the end of the day, there are times where I have, like there's more day, or more things to get done than I actually have time in the day. And so what I have to realize every single day is what's not going to get done, right? And what am I going to focus on? But ultimately, for me, it's always staying true to what makes me who I am. So if I go back to my time at Michigan Tech, I believe that everybody is the prophet of their own life, right? And so there are things that you actually literally and figuratively speak into existence. And everybody has heard of the placebo effect. That not only impacts people from a healing and a medical standpoint, it also plays into how you perform, right? And so I'll never forget when I was at Michigan Tech, I had to sign on my door and it said, "In this room dwells Hajj E. Fleming, the CEO and founder of a multi-million-dollar corporation that glorifies God." right? And I actually had that on my door. I even had it on my phone that had a voicemail. So for the students there, I don't know if you have ever seen a voicemail. I mean, I don't know if you ever seen a voicemail recorder before, but we actually had those like when I was back in college, right? And so I had a message on it, and I'll never forget. Eric Jeter came up to me one time. He was like, "I know you said you're going to run a multi-million-dollar corporation, but why don't you have any gas in your car?" And I was, so what I'm saying. So he had jokes, but it did not discourage me. Anytime we had like sessions at school or whatever, and we had a badge, I would put CEO on my badge because that's where I saw myself, where that's the vision that I had for myself. And so I'll never forget. So I start my first day of work. And I realized after going to Michigan Tech and taking calc and thermal and all of these classes, I realized on day one I did not want to do that for the rest of my life. And I put all this time in. And so now I'm having a moment of reflection. And what I realized though ultimately is that schooling was really about helping me to be able to solve problems. And so engineering and my background was perfect for solving problems because people who have the greatest impact in society are those who solve big problems, right? And so even as you're going through the process, the average person is going to switch jobs 11 to 13 times. So no matter where you start, you're probably not going to finish there. And so understanding in the work that you're doing, like doing something that you love puts you in a position to where you can have some major impact. So I've had a chance to do a myriad of things. I've had a chance to design sneakers that have made it to the actual market. I've had a chance to be a part of a CNN like documentary that was viewed by over 1 million people. I've started companies where we've raised millions of dollars. And so we've created partnerships with Cadillac and Google and IBM and Dell. If you go down to the Nike store downtown, so we did the casting for that. So if you go on the women's floor in the basement, you know what I'm saying? I did all the casting for all the female like runners for that. So we've had a chance to work with Nike and work with a variety of different organizations that I've always loved. And and so my day is kind of different every single day. You know what I'm saying? The project we do now called Rebrand Cities is that we work with municipal partners. So we work with cities to get small businesses that are offline, online. And so we're doing it in 9 different cities in 2 different countries. So we have partnerships with the city of Los Angeles, Detroit, and beyond. And it gives us an opportunity to be able to make a major impact and to be able to work with small businesses that I believe are the lifeblood of the small business. I mean, of our actual country. But I remember my time at Michigan Tech. I was always thinking entrepreneurially, but I didn't always see the outlets there for that because everything was focused on getting a good job like when you graduate. And so the jobs that everybody is preparing for today, they don't even exist. And so I'm telling you that you are preparing for something where there's no roadmap for it. And so how you figure out how to navigate that becomes really important. And every experience is something that you can learn from and you can grow from. But I think also too, what 2020 has taught me is that it's so important for us to be able to appreciate each other. And we didn't realize how much we miss humanity until we have these stay-at-home orders and we have to be in the house or things like that. And so it's really important for us to be able to embrace the fact that we might look different. We might be from different backgrounds. We might want to pursue something different. We have a lot of diversity from an age standpoint here. There are things that we can learn from each other. But as I talk to the students, what I really want you to do is I want you to push the envelope. One of the things that I always challenge Michigan Tech on, like when I was there, is that I thought that if you think about an entrepreneurial mindset and you think about the people, because every school wants you to donate. I was like, we need to create people who are creating change in the world because then the school would never have a problem in terms of receiving donations, right? And so I always had kind of like that mindset. And so I wanted to be able to share that with you guys because I think it's really important for you to really be able to figure out your place in life, but also to not forget that there are people who see the world differently than you do. And when you have a chance to do something that challenges traditional a traditional mindset, those are the people that our society remembers. People don't people don't remember the people who follow all the instructions. So my wife is, that she does a tremendous job. So she's smarter than me, and I commend everybody to marry up, right? So she graduated number one in her mechanical engineering college at school. She was a valedictorian. I wasn't quite the valedictorian, right? So she follows instructions. I make things happen. And so that's just how I'm wired. But at the end of the day, understanding how you're wired to be able to execute on stuff to me becomes critically important. So I want to share just a couple more slides, but what I want to do is I want to open up the floor, because what I realize is that no matter how great of a speaker, and I'm sure I'm solving world peace and hunger, um, people want to hear themselves talk, and I want to be able to make sure that we're answering questions that are really important to you. Because I know that when I was in your place, I was always trying to get insight in terms of what makes people work, or what makes people tick, or what makes someone a high performer. So I know last year I ended up going through, I was always pretty healthy, right? But I ended up having a tumor. And so I got the tumor removed. And when I got the tumor removed, I then had a choice. I was like, they were like, radiation, chemo, take me down this path. And I said I didn't want to go that route. And so it was a moment of reflection for me. And so what I did is that at that moment, I changed my entire lifestyle. I went plant-based. I started getting into bed on time. I was working out more, doing a lot of things, but I also created a morning routine. But what it also showed me is that everybody talks about hustling, and hustling is important, but it can be overrated sometimes, because sometimes we think we're supposed to hustle all the way to the grave. And what happens is that your health, I don't care how much money, resources, all those things that you have, if you don't have your health, you absolutely have nothing. So my blood pressure was like 160 over 110. It was totally out of bounds, high cholesterol, all kind of things were out of whack. But as I made that change, it changed the way I saw the world. It changed the work that I did. And now I now focus on myself and making sure, just like they always say this, when you get on the airplane, what do? If something happens, God forbid, they want you to secure, what I'm saying, like your mouthpiece or the airbag first. Before you can help anybody else, you have to first be able to make sure that you can address that in your own life. And so again, I want to make sure that as we're doing things in the workspace, don't forget about your health. All of this happened because I also had a compromised immune system. Got all that in check, and then COVID-19 comes, and I'm in a very good place because I was doing the things that I didn't realize were going to be helpful. So I just wanted to be able to share that with you. I want to share just a few more slides, and then what I want to do is um, I want to jump into answering your questions. So I want to talk a little bit about storytelling. And so I want to share this particular slide from a storytelling standpoint real quick. And so it's this. So there's this project called Significant Objects. And so Significant Object is this collection of 100 stories. And so Rob Walker and Joshua Glenn took items that were worth $1.25 or less, and they sold these items all together for $8,000. And I'm going to give you an example of one of the items. They took a Kangol mouse. They took a one-eared Kangol mouse, right? And so they took the Kangol mouse. They actually took a picture, and they had somebody do a story for all 100 of these products. This ended up selling for $162.50. Price increase was about 1,200%. And so why am I sharing that example? Here's the reason that I'm sharing that example. It goes back to story. There is something that's called the hero's journey. It was created by Joseph Campbell back in 1949. And so the hero's journey, any cinematic movie that you watch, books, they all follow the same format. So there's this hero, go through this process, refuses the call, and then all of a sudden, steps into his or her purpose. And so I'm sharing this because it's going to be very important for you to be able to communicate who you are, the ideas that you are, the things that you love to do. For every student who is on here, you have something on your side that's called you. People are willing to do stuff for you that they like. If I go up to somebody, I'm 49 years old, and I say, "Hey, look, I need help on this, whatever." They might help me, but they might look at me sideways, right? But if you're 19, 20 something, people are willing to help out. They are willing to make a connection and to create a lifeline. And so I would really challenge you to identify not only people on this call, but there are people within your network or people who are great alumni. I'll give an example. So Suzanne Jarba is she is an alumni of Michigan Tech. She was one of the first hires um, for for DreamWorks. And so now me and her are partnering on an episodic series that's going to be coming out soon. But she is somebody from Michigan Tech. I made that connection because I was working with the Michigan Tech online MBA program. And I said, look, we need to reach out to famous alumni. And so I got her name, I contacted her, and we've developed a pretty good relationship and partnership. So I say all this to say, there are people within your network that we undervalue. And you can't wait until you're in the middle of a storm to be able to reach out to these individuals. And so I think it's really, really important. And so what I've realized is that I have amazing mentors and sponsors who are a part of what I do. So in the work with Rebrand Cities, I had a chance to meet a guy by the name of John Maida. John Maida is one of the foremost design authorities on the planet. He used to work at Kleiner Perkins, one of the top VC firms. He used to work at WordPress. And so I brought him to a conference that I was doing called Brand Camp. We made a great connection, and he literally opened up the door for me to have a partnership with WordPress. He is old enough to be my father. He's Asian, meaning that he doesn't look like me. He has a totally different background, but he believed in me like, like I was his, and so it was that kind of sponsorship that's required. But as an entrepreneur, being on an entrepreneurial journey, it's, the journey that you start with is not what you're going to end with. And so the stuff that I was doing, I'm doing these conferences, not realizing that I was building my network up of people that would open up doors for me and vice versa. And so I say all that to say, and I'm gonna kind of close to this because I want to open up the floor like for questions. If you think about the 3M Post-it note, and it was created, it's one of the most iconic products ever created. The gentleman that created it was not trying to create the Post-it note. He was trying to create a bookmark for his hymnal. But here's the thing, he was on the journey of discovery. And so in everything that we do, whether it's school, whether it's projects or jobs, even if something doesn't work, you're never failing, you're always learning. And so everything that I do is always a learning opportunity. And I'm learning and I'm doing stuff and I'm meeting people along the way. And it might be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road before I actually have to leverage that connection. But I find that it was being on that journey that has really opened up major doors. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands this. Fear, if you think about fear, the power of fear is when it can be imposed on you without ever having to physically do harm to you, right? And so lots of times people will impose stuff on us or we won't make a move because we're scared to fail. In a social media driven world, there's so much comparison that we compare ourselves to people who don't even know we exist, who don't even care about us, and we're trying to compare our lives to somebody else. If you focus on just being the best that you can be, then you're going to win more than you're going to lose. The other part is that also understanding you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And so it's very important for you to take shots. And especially students who are young, who, like, if you're not married, I love my wife, I have a 10-year-old daughter, but I don't have the same amount of flexibility time-wise that I had then. So now when I swing, I take big swings, but I need to knock it out of the park because there's people who are depending upon every decision that I make. But if I could speak to my younger self, I would think about the time where I could stay up late, or I could say I'm gonna work on this startup, or I could go, I could go live, I'm saying, like live abroad. If you look at what's happening now in the pandemic, there are two totally different things going on. So I was reading this article in Forbes, and the interesting part is that people who are affluent are flying totally above the whole pandemic, right? So first time private jet usage, I think, is up like 32%. So this community of people are flying to countries and areas, and they're doing short-term visas, and their collection of friends, they're working on projects where they're amassing resources. And again, I don't connect the fact that you have to have a lot of money to being successful, but the money allows them to have the freedom to be able to work on things that they absolutely love and want to do. And so I personally believe that the new luxury is freedom. It's freedom to be able to work from wherever and to do what you're going to do. And so one of the things that we're doing as a family, and we're going to leave tomorrow and we're going to go to Miami, and we're going to be there for 3 weeks because my daughter can work remotely. I have business stuff I can do down there, but I can work in a warm environment. I can actually go out to go eat at a restaurant. I can do other stuff. But I'm telling you this because the way I'm thinking now is differently. And I'm looking at access and opportunity and what can I do if I'm not bound to a desk or an office. And again, I'm not knocking anyone who is in that situation because you can be highly successful. But what I want you to understand is that there's opportunity to do stuff and to work on amazing stuff. And you can do this in a variety of different ways. So what I like to do now is I like to open up the floor for questions. I know we still have quite a bit of time, but I want to make sure we can get to some questions. I have more slides and all kind of stuff that I could show you. But what I would prefer to do is to make sure that we're like addressing things that are important. So I hope you've enjoyed like what I've shared so far, and I want to dig into some of these questions. All right, I think we have a hand raised. So if you want to just unmute and you can speak. I don't know whether they can unmute themselves or not. Okay, yes. Okay, so I think we have a couple. There's the young lady first, and then we have the gentleman. So I don't know how we're going to do the questions. Let's see if I can unmute people.
Folks should be able to unmute themselves or not.
Okay.
Yeah, they should be able to unmute themselves, and yeah, just go ahead and chime in with your question. Are people having a hard time unmuting?
I can unmute. I was just being patient.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I guess first I just want to say thank you really quick. My question was about transitions, and I was curious if you could just kind of maybe give some examples of those times where you were in your transition stage, whether it was like starting at Michigan Tech or like what you did that day after you realized that job wasn't for you, or having a daughter, and just I guess speak a little bit to how you handled those moments.
So that's a great question. So in life, there are trigger points. So I'm gonna go back to 2008. So, we're going through the bankruptcy. I'm at Ford Motor Company. I know our activity is making cuts. So at some point, things are going to end, but I was like, I got a nice little runway. So 12/23/2009, it's my birthday. Just came back from Disney, just came back from speaking. My wife is pregnant, like with our daughter. And I'm on top of the world. And they're like, your job has ended. I was like, Now I was already writing a book. I was already doing brand camps. I was already doing the other kind of stuff on the side. But I had to make a decision. I'd already been at Ford, I think, for 10 years. Even though I knew on day one I didn't want to be there forever, I'd already been there for 10 years, right? So what happens is that time flies. And so I had a conversation with my wife, and then we're talking like, look, if you're ever going to make a move and do something, now is the time. So I literally, that's the moment where I had to make a decision. I walk out the door, and at that point, I think I had an iPhone. I pick up my iPhone, and literally the phone buzzes with my first opportunity. So now everybody wants to be an entrepreneur until they become one. And when they become an entrepreneur, they realize this stuff is really, really hard, right? So I walk out and I'm getting a call from Michigan Tech. And so what had happened was that I was teaching a class, and then Ruth Archer was in my class. She was over the MBA program. She was over the online MBA program. Because we had the class, we created a good relationship. She calls me and it's like, look, I have an opportunity for you. And I was like, great. That opportunity allowed me to be able to then transition into becoming a pure entrepreneur. So a pure entrepreneur, this is how I eat. I eat based upon going out and killing my prey every single day. And so that was a moment where I had to make a decision. I was like, because I had other opportunities to stay in the automotive industry, but I knew that my heart really wasn't there. And it's not that I couldn't do an effective job. I just wasn't going to be happy doing it. At the same time at Ford, I was trying to get into the marketing department, and I couldn't even get an opportunity because I was typecasted. So I was engineering, I had worked in quality, I had, all of those things, had an MBA, but nothing. So then I had to go do something where I didn't have the total map for it. But part of it was that I wasn't scared to fail. I tried it, but there were ebbs and flows. And so even when I first started, me and my wife had some come to Jesus meetings. And for those who don't know what a come to Jesus meeting is, it's like, so the vision that I had was here, the reality was way down here. And so, you know what I'm saying? So there were those ebbs and flows. And what I always try to share with people is that I want people to understand everybody is not going to be Mark Zuckerberg and go get, and become a unicorn off the bat and all those things. And so sometimes we do a disservice to people in that space because we think that that's how it's going to happen. But that was one where like I had to really kind of dig in and figure out, okay, is this really what I want to do? And then kind of go for it. And then at that point in time, you have to figure out all kind of stuff. I had to learn how to, like in a regular job, you have a schedule. It's already set for you. I had to create my schedule. I was like, so do I take a shower first thing in the morning? Do I go to a coffee shop? Do I do like small things that you don't think matters? But also with Michigan Tech, I had to account for every minute that I worked. And so it also gave me a better sense of timing because I had to be able to say I did X amount because it was being paid per hour. So I had to be able to break down everything that I did. And that was also another great lesson for me.
Great. Hajj, we've got a question from Natalie Nold. Natalie says, I wish I could take your class on personal branding. Do you have any books, resources you would recommend to develop your brand? And before I pass it over to Hajj, I'm just going to interject and share that we are hosting Hajj. He's going to be coming back to Tech, and he's teaching a personal brand workshop, 2-part workshop in February. So if you're interested in that, check out our Husky Innovate website and I'll keep you posted. And now I'll pass it over to Hajj.
Yes. So that'll be taught virtually. I did used to fly up there though. And so, those were some amazing times. So yes, so definitely check out like those sessions. I believe it's going to be on the 17th and the 23rd. And we have some office hours like connected to that as well. Also, I have an amazing book that's life-changing as well too. So those are great resource that you can use. So, all right, next question. There was a young lady, she has glasses and has an orange thing. I know she had her hand raised. And
Not
okay,
sure.
if not, we can go to whoever's next. Okay.
John, if you're talking, you're muted.
Thank you. So I have a question for you, Hajj. Thank you again for your great presentation. Practical question. So you kind of touched on the whole idea of storytelling, and you kind of weaved in there kind of what your own story was and what some of those inflection points were for you. What if you're not much of a storyteller? How do you craft your story? Before we get to your workshop, how do you craft your story if you're not much of a storyteller?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think everybody, so storytelling to me is a learned behavior, right? And so it's something that we can develop in. And so what I used to think is that people who are charismatic are just like I just want to just be charismatic, right? And so those individuals typically connect with people in a different way. But in 2012, I went to a TED conference. It was I think it was out in Long Beach. And so I had a chance to listen to a young lady by the name of Susan Cain. And so I think the title was The Power of the Introvert or something like that. But it radically changed the way I thought about people, because what I realized is that people don't have to be the loudest voice to have the greatest impact. And so some of it is just understanding um, what works for us. Some people are tremendous writers. And so some of it is they're going to actually write content out. Other people are great curators. And so maybe they don't have the chops to create all the stuff, but they're amazing at pulling stuff together to communicate a story. Some people are visual learners. And so they're able to kind of capture that from that particular standpoint. Some people are great connectors and they're able to get their information in front of other people that have a louder, that have a larger platform or a bigger megaphone. And so the part that I think that you might be struggling with is all of the other stuff, when the most important part is the information that you have, and being able to pull those things together so that people can make an emotional connection. Branding really is about emotional connections, right? At the end of the day, we buy stuff that we don't even like, that we don't, that from a functional standpoint, most of the stuff that people buy, people overbuy all the time. And I'm the same way. I got all kind, I'm a sneakerhead on a budget, right? So I'm buying sneakers. If you ask my wife, I probably got like 50 something pair of sneakers. I don't need all of them. I only got one pair. I only have like one set of feet, right? But I'm buying stuff. So people buy stuff and want to be associated and connected with stuff that's interesting, that they like, that there's common ground with. And so what I would say, just be authentic to yourself and try to figure out those points, and then figure out ways to be able to share those so that it can allow people to it'll allow you to be able to pull people into your world. And so we'll get into more specific details in our actual workshop.
Great, thanks.
That was a great question. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a question if nobody else.
Okay.
Oh, I see Faith has had her hand raised. Go ahead.
Tom?
Darnisha has her hand up.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you. I always got an advocate out there. Thanks, Faith. Raj, you mentioned reflection several times in your presentation, and it's something that we're really trying to incorporate. We have a group of people called Innovation Hub or Idea Hub on campus, and we're looking at how we can reframe our entire curriculum for students. And I just thought that I heard reflection every time you said it, and it's one of the aspects or the pieces that we're wanting to incorporate for our students on a larger scale. Talk to us a little bit about why that was important at really critical times of your life, and how you built that into your lifestyle.
So, that's a great question. And so part of what I realized is that there are moments where I was chasing somebody else's vision of me versus me pursuing what was in my heart, right? So now I don't pick up my phone and go to Instagram the first thing in the morning. I used to go do that, and I'm off running, following what everybody else is doing, but I kind of lost myself. And so what I realized is that I had to carve out time where I'm focused on me first. So in the morning, I'm journaling, I'm doing stuff. But I think it's really important because it's so easy to get in this rat race to compete against people who don't even know that we even exist, right? And I think also too is that trying to get people to do stuff that matters versus just doing something just to collect a check. And so there's so much focus on like, I got to be the highest paid person here. I have to go do this, or I have to, and especially, what I'm saying? So how I grew up is that like, if you were smart, then your family expects you to go into an industry that's smart. Like you're an engineer, so you're supposed to go get a job, or you're a doctor, or all of those things. And so sometimes we get away from what we truly are wired to do. And so I think it does require us to kind of settle ourselves down and to be introspective in terms of how we're wired, what we love to do, the impact that we can make. And even when I look at the work that you're doing, like your work is super critical, and you had to make a lot of personal sacrifices to do that. Like living in Houghton, as much as I enjoy being there short term, that's a whole nother thing, right? But I can learn from you and what I've seen through you. I think those are the kind of examples that kids need to see. We put so much emphasis on athletes and entertainers and celebrities and that lifestyle to where they don't have a chance to engage with real people who make like real life decisions that are making a tremendous impact. Like at the end of the day, your life will have more impact on me than LeBron James, right? Because I've seen you walk a certain way. And so I think we have to put more of those intentional kind of role models in front of people so that they can see regular people who are doing what they love doing, but they can have an amazing life and they don't have to be a quote unquote celebrity. If it opens up that way, great. But I think, part of it is just kind of selling them down and to really think about their signature talents and connecting certain stuff to that, but encouraging them to do what they're wired to do versus just this is the cool thing to do. So I hope that was kind of helpful.
It looks
Hi,
like we
hi.
have a
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
Hey,
Hi, I have a question.
yeah.
So you mentioned conferences, and I'm wondering your opinion on how did you figure out how and when to invest in your development? I constantly consider it, but the give and take with the monetary investment, with you wanting to increase your own, return on investment. How do you figure out how to invest in your own development?
So that's a great question. I'm gonna push back a little bit because I think that we're always learning. So this is a learning opportunity. So they're formal and they're non-formal opportunities, right? So there are things that are degree bearing and there are things where you can learn information. You can go into YouTube. There's a series of things, right? So I have virtual mentors. There are people who have no idea who I am, who I follow and I read and and I learn from them. I have people who are mentors and sponsors that I have a chance to interact with. I've paid to be at conferences so I can learn from certain people. I've gotten degrees. I paid Michigan Tech money, right? So I have a degree, right? And so, you know what I'm saying? So all of those things, but we're always learning. I learned from my daughter, so like I learned about, so I'm a brand guy, but I didn't even know the whole history about, has anyone ever heard of a Birkin bag before? So a Birkin bag, okay, so like I didn't realize that these bags cost $8,000 plus and they can go up to $500,000 beyond. Like I just had no idea. But there's certain stuff I'm learning from my daughter and learning. So I'm always learning. So you're always learning. All of us are always learning somehow. And so understand that there is a formal and then there's an informal process and there are ways to be able to learn. So So I use stuff like, so I go into TechCrunch and I'm always reading in terms of what's happening there. I go into Flipboard, I go into Twitter. So there are different platforms where I have a chance to be able to figure out what's happening. I read different blogs. you know what I'm saying? So there's always ways that I'm learning. I go into YouTube. We just did an amazing conference called Rebrand Black Summit, and we had people like Hill Harper who were sharing amazing stories, and that's for free. So you can go check that out. So there's all kind of stuff out there that allows you to be able to learn. And then if you feel that there's an opportunity to be able to make an investment and you think that that return is going to be good, then I would say go for it. But you're always learning, and there's all kind of resources that are available, and also challenge ourselves to learn different stuff, like, so not the same stuff that we always learn. Also follow people who don't have the same worldview as you. What we do in social media, that we all follow the same people who think the same way we do. So what happens? It's an echo chamber. So all we do, it just reinforces all the stuff that we already think. So follow people with opposing views so that you can understand how they think. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything. There's nobody on the planet that I agree 100% with. I don't even agree with my wife 100%, right? But we're still together, right? So it's all good. So, you know what I'm saying? So I hope that was helpful.
Wow. I have a quick question too, really fast.
Yeah.
It's actually two questions kind of together. They're more like personal questions. But I'm like somebody, I have a really hard time with sticking with things for more than a couple years. I'm really passionate about them, but I like to go off and do something and like start something new somewhere and then like get it up and running and then go somewhere else. And like make small impacts in different places, but I get antsy and like want to go do something else and kind of like can completely drop it. So part of me looks like, I feel like I have a lot of really good ideas. And so I look more toward entrepreneurship because of like, I don't know if I can really work under someone very well. I like to come up with things and then like help create ideas. So my first question is kind of like more personal, asking like, what would you kind of feel about, like, do you feel like entrepreneurship might be something? And then the second question is more along the lines of like, I do want to have a family, or I want to be in a relationship, like a very serious relationship as a young adult, like, and I don't know if the entrepreneurship pathway matches up with being able to have like to be married at a young age. I don't want to like, I don't know, or like even starting a family at a young age. Can you tie them together at all? Or is it more you need to focus on yourself when you're doing entrepreneurial things as you're starting up, and then once you kind of get moving, then you can like settle down?
Yes, those are great questions, and we could have spent the whole time just actually focusing on those questions. So, so I don't want you to look at the fact that you like to go from one idea to another idea as being a bad thing. There are people who that's their profession. They come in and they take companies that are underperforming, and they'll come in and they're there for a short period of time. I have a friend who is an amazing thought leader, but he jumps around, and I always tell him, I'm like, dude, like, I already know in like 3 months that you're gonna be working on something else. But what he does is that he thinks more from a catalytic nature. And what he does is that he helps people to be able to jumpstart ideas. And so getting him focused on one thing is very, very difficult. I have friends who are, I think it's OCD or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Like they have a tough time focusing, but they're amazing at what they do, right? So some people might look at that as being a liability, but I look at that as being an ability that you can absolutely like galvanize. Also too, in my entrepreneurial journey, I believe that part of mitigating risk is that you can figure out like whether you're gonna be a pure entrepreneur, and there's things that you can learn from somebody else. And so working for someone, even if you're not gonna be there forever, it can provide stability and you can moonlight with the idea, right? But don't like, you know, I don't want you to not pursue an entrepreneurial opportunity because of what you're worried about other people's thoughts about you or things like that. Marriage is a beautiful thing. And so you could have somebody who now you two are working on a business idea together. It could be something that you do part-time. So so I want to encourage you to explore it, and then you can figure out, but you also have to understand what is your risk level? Like, you know, like, are you the kind of person that's like, you know, so now like for me, like, you know what I'm saying, like meeting payroll every month means I have people and families who are depending upon me. And this is like tens of thousands of dollars that I know has to be there every single month. So there's a different level of pressure on me. But when I started, I didn't have to worry about that. Like I only had to figure out like what was the work like for me. So I'm excited about what you said. You have a chance to be able to explore. You can make mistakes now, right? They're not going to be permanent mistakes, but you have a chance to be able to try stuff. And even if it doesn't work, you can still recover. You can still go work for somebody, right? You have an amazing degree, and you'll always be able to do something else. So again, I would just look at it as an opportunity. And I'm willing to go over, you know what I'm saying, a few minutes too. I know we're close to 1 o'clock, but I don't mind going over if we have more questions. So.
If you have any connections or anything, do you have any connections that I could like get in contact with about? Because like that would be a dream job to be able to go to companies and like help them get back up and then like just jump to another company. And I would have no idea how that really works or how to get involved with that. But like that is something that I would totally love to do.
So I would need to better understand like your background. So maybe, you know, so Lisa has my email address, and if she can share it, and you can shoot me a note. So I have to better kind of understand, and I want to be able to see, because I wouldn't want to try to mismatch, you know what I'm saying, something. So I want to better understand, and maybe I can share some ideas with you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Who's next? We got any more, or are we?
I don't see any more questions. Hajj, thank you for sharing your insights. And there were so many rich nuggets of wisdom in your talk today. I'm not a student at that, you know, I'm not a young student, but I really appreciate it. It's great for everybody, people of all ages. So thank you.
Absolutely. So we're going to be back on the 17th and on the 23rd. So at least we'll have like more information, but we're going to try to, you know, dig in and help people be able to tell better stories and to be able to lock in on what they're created to do.
Yeah, definitely. I'll reach out to this group. Definitely check it out. It's going to be a great workshop.
Cool. I definitely appreciate the opportunity. It's good seeing Dr. Morrison and Dr. Coe. Good to see Darnicia. And so I see family. I feel really good. Lisa, thank you very much for reaching out and making this happen for sure. And everybody who was on today, I appreciate. Time is the one commodity that you can't get any more of. So I appreciate you giving your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Hajj. This has been a pleasure. It's great.
All right. Thank you.